Coming up, recently I caught up with Ryan Kaminski from Orlando Magic on SI to get his take on all that's happening with the Orlando Magic right now. And boy, he had a lot to say. So we had a really good discussion. It was long enough that I'm going to be splitting it into three different parts. But first, this is the Orlando Magic Nation, your source for all things Orlando Magic on YouTube. For Magic fans, by a Magic fan. I'm Edwin Valentine, and I want to thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. Got to do the normal YouTube things like share, drop a comment below. And if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. And if you're an audio podcast listener, make sure to rate the show 5 stars and send it to another Magic fan. It really helps the show grow by getting to more people. So let's get started. So in this third and final installment of my discussion with Ryan, we go over a bit more on Jeff Weltman and his odd decision, at least in my view, on why we didn't know that he had extended his contract through this upcoming year and then into the future, as well as what can be done really trying to fill out this team. I feel that Weltman has done a pretty good job of making sure to do the bigger things right, and then maybe the really smaller things like a Goga and a Mo. But what can he do to really help that middle area that it's going to help us in the playoffs by making us a deeper team? So that's what this discussion is. Just a note, at the end of it, I kind of start to choke, and to me it was pretty funny, so I kept it in. So you're going to hear at the end where I'm going to be a bit more gravelly voiced, but again, to me it was pretty funny, so I kept it in. So if it's something that that you don't like, make sure to fast forward to the end. And just a note that the audio on my end is a little bit softer in that I didn't want to really project so much because I had my kid in the other room and he was asleep and he was having a little bit of trouble. So I didn't want to mess with the volume a little too much. So if I sound a bit more monotone, that's why. But I don't think it's too bad in this one. It was a little worse in another video that I did. So here's the third and final installment with my discussion with Ryan Kaminski. If you had your druthers for the bench unit, like what would be your wish list of type of guys that we would have off the bench, let's say?
Yeah, I was looking at some Billy. I have 2 Billy Donovan teams real quick that came to mind as well, and then I'll think of some bench guys as well. But what came to mind as you were talking, unless I have it wrong. Now I think I have it wrong. Hold on, let me double check. Did he coach the Chris Paul Thunder? Yeah, he was the coach of the Chris Paul Thunder. There's something about Chris Paul, Schroeder, and it was like one of SGA's first years there.
Yeah.
And, just one example of his kind of creativity was they had a lot of success, went 44-28, finished fifth in the West, and they started 3 guards. That was SGA, Chris Paul, and Schroeder. They started 2 of them. Schroeder came off the bench, but they had a lot of those 3-guard lineups, as you might remember, with those 3, and then Gallinari starting 60 games in 2020, and Steven Adams. So just highlighting one example there where he's a very creative offensive coach. I think that is where that's the one like specialty skill, let's say, where the Magic might get the most out of hiring Billy Donovan is. Like he will probably adjust on the fly. He will try stuff with more spacing. And the one other lineup that comes to mind, I'm not sure if you remember this team with Chicago, but with Alex Caruso when he was there. And who else was it? They had a top 5. Yeah, that's it. Lonzo Ball. So they had up and through December, they had like a top 5 defense, a really good team with Ball and Caruso and Vucevic. And DeRozan, and that was a good defense, and one good example at least of him maximizing a roster for defense, where that was like that could be an example where Caruso, they built a defense out of guards, like Caruso and Lonzo was really their best defense. Like that was the part that stood out, like having a top defense with Vucevic as your center, DeRozan and Levine were out there, like that's kind of wild when you think about the personnel to be able to do that. So it goes to show like maybe he could get some of unlock Suggs a little bit too. Like that, everything I just said leads me to, that should help Suggs in some capacity, whether it's the decision making, whether it's the system he's a part of. I mean, with the same exact personnel, I would love to see a system like you said where Bane and Suggs and Black as well, the best shooters, are the priority, where they're trying to get 10 threes a game from these guys. And one thing to the Magic and Mosley's credit, like we literally asked them, like, what's the goal for Bane here? And they said, we're trying to get 10 threes. And that didn't happen until he finally hit 10 threes at like 40 or 50 games in. And we asked, and that is the goal. And I think like it can be true that that was the goal, but it was never found. The right solution to make it happen was never found, especially if it came at the cost of trying to win games. And they just trusted Bane to be their creator so much, I think, on the ball, that it made it really hard to run the offense to set him up off the ball. But ultimately, I think this new system ideally could involve, more ball movement, more off ball threes for Bane and Suggs and Black, especially. And just by doing that, you would think that opens the floor in the paint a little more for Franz and Paulo in the paint, Wendell too, where they're great finishing and elbow playmaker types. In terms of the bench, we hit on maybe a third center if they don't bring Mo Wagner back, like
Sure.
like an offensive type of center. But like
Probably in
you
the
said,
draft, you would think, yeah.
Yeah, the trade market is not great for centers right now. I don't really think the Magic, like the thing, Wendell is definitely one of these players where for the Magic he's just worth way more probably than everyone else, because they really need versatility at that center spot. They have all these big wing fours. They need someone who can shoot, who can do the dirty work, who can set the screens and be versatile enough to switch out on the perimeter on defense. And Wendell is a master of what's the word? Master of all, or what? Master of none, but
Yeah.
whatever the word is. But he's actually good at everything, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
He's not. He might not
Yeah.
be great at any one thing, but he's pretty good
Right.
at everything. And that versatility is really valuable for what the Magic needs. So yes, ideally, if you so one other name that I've seen floated around that's a big name is Larry Markkanen, because there's just if you could, yeah, ideally if you could go get a unicorn center to throw it at the 5 next to Paulo and Franz, sure, like go get the Kristaps Porzingis in theory, except there's only 5 of them that actually do that in the
Right.
league, that not only block shots and hit threes, but bring a little bit of scoring versatility as well. There's just not many guys that in the league that can actually do all that consistently, and most of them are stars if they can do all of that consistently. So, like maybe like you said, if you combine Suggs and Wendell, you can kind of get a value of a star type player in return that makes sense. But the only scenario where I really saw Wendell being in a trade was if he was packaged with Paulo because they share an agent, and like in
Mm.
the Giannis hypothetical, Miles Turner could probably come back. Like I think money wise,
Mm.
it made more sense to kind of swap both than just the one. That was kind of the only scenario where I could see Wendell out the door. Um, yeah, I really think it's going to be internal development, and maybe one,
Yeah.
you get one new piece. Like if you could find a center prospect that could shoot, like, Vsar out of UNC, there's not many centers this year in the class to begin with. But he's one that can shoot a little bit. But, yeah, you find a center prospect if you can. But, when you have like this, they have their team. They were just hurt again. They have
Right.
Suggs, Bane, Franz, Paulo, Wendell to start. And you have Anthony Black that you're very invested in as a super 6-man. You like Goga as a replacement, unsung understudy is what I call him, because he's always ready to fill in for Wendell,
Yeah.
like you said. Tristan Da Silva made some strides offensively. That's kind of your top 7, top 8 already. Jace Richardson, Noah Penda were great rookies right away. They looked really good. They're going to be playing for minutes. I think that is kind of the natural replacement for maybe Javon Carter or Jonathan Isaac in the rotation. So you're not
Right.
really trading for another guy. You kind of have them waiting. It is interesting why they didn't get in as rookies in this playoff series at all, but I think, you just kind of limit your rotation to 8 or 9 and you go with your guys is what happened. But they probably were good enough to maybe try. That's how good they were as rookies. So that's a
Mm.
good sign for Orlando that, you have Suggs, Bane, Black, Jace, 4 guards on your roster that should in theory complement as shooters off of your big wing distributors. So you're kind of set with most of your core guards in that sense. And obviously things change fast with new guys, but maybe one more veteran wing. Without Isaac and Franz, they were very suddenly short on the wing. Obviously, in the playoffs, you have Da Silva, and then if he wasn't good or if he was off that night and you don't trust the rookie, you just had no one. So maybe one more veteran, reliable wing, a plug and play type. That could make sense if you could maybe find that for cheap. But they're also, they had to attach 2 seconds to get off the Tyus Jones deal. They sent out 4 firsts for
Right.
Bane. So I don't think they're trying to, like I said this about the deadline too. Like there's a reason they didn't throw a bunch of more assets in a deal to try to push this team and win now. And ultimately, that kind of limited Coach Mosley's options to adjust. Like, if you're just going to
Right.
say, we're not going to trade any more picks, we're going to sign somebody off waivers and convert the two-way guy, and that's going to be your rotation. Well, that's different than we just traded a first for James Posey to make a run this year.
Right.
Like, it's just not,
Right.
it's not as win now of a push as people thought, even though it was a huge investment for Bane. So I think that same mindset will be here this summer. I don't think they're going to throw more assets out the window per se to try to like cobble together a better team today. I really think they like their long-term plan if the health can stick, and that's the big if. So I think they'll give it one more run, like we said.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be the my wish list if I would be able to grab a couple guys, maybe being scavengers or being the third or fourth team in a big deal, would be to somehow get like a Sam Hauser type or like a Sam Merrill type of shooter. I think off the bench, just a guy who could just get hot and hit 3 threes, in a quarter or something like that. I think that would be the perfect run. But like you said, then it's a trade. So who are you giving up, right? So we're going to give up this early on Jace, or we're going to give up, what could be from a Tristan. Like then it becomes again, what are you willing to give up? Because people say, oh, I want this, I want that, but what are you willing to give up? You gotta, what is it? You gotta lose money to make money, or I forgot my sayings
exactly.
now. You forget your,
we got there eventually.
You got to do that kind of stuff, right? You got to make sure that you're always doing that. So I think those types of guys would be the ones that I do that I would be nice to have. And we've seen that Weltman has been able to do well on the margins with people like picking up Goga off the scrap heap, picking up Mo off the scrap heap, basically bringing in Javon as quickly as he did. So we've seen him being able to do okay in I think the big stuff and the little stuff, but it's the medium stuff, I think, is where we're going to hope that Weltman's going to be able to try to get a little bit better on. And I think with him now having this extra time, like I don't know even if we know the terms of his extension, which I found a little odd that he didn't bring up at all throughout the course of the season, especially when I guess we could kind of expect that he had at least a handshake deal at the trade deadline when he didn't really do much, even though, like you said, of course, he doesn't have the powder, let's say, with all the different draft picks to be throwing around. But when we only do a cost savings thing, which was totally smart to do, and I totally was on board with, and for whatever reason, even taking Tyus out really did feel like a, addition by subtraction, unfortunately, because Tyus was a good guy. He did everything that he was asked. It just didn't work out for whatever reason with the Magic. I think that for me was an interesting. He said it was his bad for not bringing up Weltman, his contract extension. I thought that was an interesting thing that it never came up. Oops. At any point throughout the course of the rest of the year, but we don't know how long he has. I don't know if you guys are able to get that information as reporters or anything like that. But I think that was an interesting thing that didn't come out. Why would, in your opinion, why would something like that not necessarily come out? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that's it's very interesting, and the timing is great. I think it just sounds like he kind of had some good timing with when he did sign it, and the only way anyone finds out about that is if someone has a reason to leak it and a reason to tell a Shams or whoever reporter it is. And maybe there just wasn't much reason on his side to put that info out there. Like, I think everything is kind of thought through the realm of like public perception. And, at the time, at the end of the day, if you're the GM of a franchise and you're working on an extension and you basically if he has an offer to extend his contract while the team is at the high point of a season,
Successful.
yeah, like who is going to wait? Like, you're not going to wait longer and see what happens. Like, you're going to go ahead and sign it if it's available then. And I think, the Bain trade is a big positive move. And then as we talked around, this the contract was signed around the time they went to the NBA Cup, which is around the time, they were 30 or 35 games in, the stats that I was bringing up earlier, where they still were a top 15 team with a top 10 defense. And Paulo missed some games, but like every 10 games, the questions Mosley was getting is like, what's working? Why is this the most successful season ever? And then it's like, oh, why is this the worst train wreck you've ever seen? It's like literally by the week, it changes just by that number of games. So, when things are going that well, he signed it. And like I said, I don't necessarily think there was any reason, like any positive reason for that news to come out. I don't necessarily think there was a good reason to put it out, or in terms of like an incentive for anyone to put that news out. And since it, was never put out there, no one really finds out about it unless you're, I guess a reporter on the scene could also, dig a little more, like if that's what they're after. I think, maybe things would have been different if he, if that was an idea right now. Like, do you think that extension would be on the table right now after all this? I don't know, but I think him signing that extension back when he did kind of allowed him to now, kind of do what he's doing now in terms of, rebuilding on the fly. He's already signed the extension. He believes in this team. And maybe ever since then, maybe it's been more of a known fact that this team had to reach X, Y, or Z goal to be considered a success. And that was the only way they were going to run it back with coach or whatever it may be. So, I think if someone wanted that info out there, it would have been out there a lot sooner. And that's really the only reason it wasn't.
Yeah, no, I'm being a bit of a stinker, to be honest. It's one of those, obviously for him on his end, hey, you're going to put a piece of paper in front of me, I'm going to sign,
right.
or DocuSign or whatever.
It's
a
real topic.
100%.
It's a real topic.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It caught fans off guard, I think, because it was not announced until after the playoff series ended. While it was signed during the high point, it was not announced until after the low point, after the blame had kind of already been cast onto the coach. So, you can question maybe the timing of why did it come out then instead of a while back. I think at the end of the day, all these guys are on the same team with the same goals, and it can be, there's a lot of conflicting like goals and directions at play. So, we'll see where it goes, but in terms of, what he's done, like I think he's really done a great job. Like you said, like this last Magic iteration, the last 5 years, is due to all of them. It's due to the whole organization. And, that means the highs should go to everyone and the lows shouldn't get blamed on one, but kind of go to everyone. But, he is the one that built this team in terms of the players, and he hired the coach and drafting the players, finding the talent, like nailing some of the picks. And, no one's going to be perfect in this business and talent evaluation, but like him and his staff have found this entire playoff rotation through trades or draft and finding guys on the like kind of on the fringes, like you said, whether it's, veterans early on, strap heap veterans that can still play now, finding Goga Batadze where he was kind of a cast out of Indiana and still has a real role here. And, just up and down the roster, where I do think that kind of along the same lines of why I believe this team was good if healthy with Coach Mosley. Like, I think this team is constructed complementary and versatile across the board. And there is a lot of good here in the team going forward, to believe in this roster and this team. Now, like, if you want to get on like why did this particular season not meet expectations, I do think it's fair to say the roster was not prepared to handle these key injuries as much as anything else, and it was a little top heavy. And the moment a few of these top heavy, your most important guys are down, you can't rely on them anymore. Like if you're a team of all-stars and you're missing a few stars, you're not the same team. And that, I think, is what got lost a little bit. So like, he's done a great job, and overall, and definitely, want to see definitely excited to see where the next team looks like. And I'm sure he wants to see these guys develop and win homegrown as well, because he's the one that picked them. Like, I'm sure he doesn't want to necessarily go shop any one guy for a different one and kind of quote unquote give up on this iteration of the team. But that is the job at the end of the day if things aren't going right. And like from his position now, if you're looking at like, okay, I got an extension, maybe I do have 1 or 2 more years to really right the ship, at least, that's pressure on him too, to say like, should he get a new coach? Should he trade star players? Or should he should he kind of bet on this group that he's bet on to this point and just say, some adjustments to the offense and health, and we're right where I've always thought we would be. And I think that's the bet he's leaning towards more than blowing it up for a complete, structure change.
Yeah. I'd say the last 2 points before letting you go, I really appreciate all your time, is one, it might have been a bit of gamesmanship on his end, so that, let's say, other GMs are going to try to squeeze him in if he was trying to make deals at the trade deadline, instead of saying, being like, oh, Jeff's on his last legs here, so we're going to try to squeeze, as he's mentioned before, that whenever you make deals out of desperation, you get squeezed a bit more. So that would be the only reason I would say that would make sense for him not to have done that as well. But as you mentioned with the roster, like, we're very top heavy with, I think we're the only team to have $30 million, 4 slots of $30 million at least on the team. So we definitely have that big chunk. And then it's just all projects, basically developmental guys on the rest of the bench. And they just didn't develop to where we needed them to, or it just wasn't as consistent throughout the season. So
that's the other thing with the roster is like, you see, everyone sees the names on the roster, and the names aren't going to change, but like the actual players do. So like year 1, Jalen, Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero is different than year 5 of those guys. And, Tristan Da Silva and Anthony Black this year is a lot different than 5 years from now. And that's between their own development, but also them entering their prime ages as the rest of the league ages out of their own prime. So, got to keep you alive over here. I know, it's crazy. He needs some water. My guy needs some water. Some hot takes, spicy hot takes coming out here.
Yeah. All right. So
that'll do it here on the Orlando Magic Nation pod. I got it, Edwin. You need some water, man. I hope he's okay. I think he's all right. Hey, we got him.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that.
Anyway, so again, thank you for all the time. Oh, my voice is going to be jacked for the end of this, but we're keeping it going. So again, I want to really thank you for your time. We went really long, an hour and a half, so I'll probably split this into 2 different sessions. So I really appreciate your time. So let me know, or let everybody know where else they can see you and what other projects you have going.
Yeah, I'll take it from here, man. I mean, take a sip there over there. Appreciate you having me. Always fun talking basketball, Magic hoops, especially. You can find me at Beyond the RK on Twitter, YouTube, social medias. Writing for Magic on SI, for Sports Illustrated, and a bunch of NBA work with other teams, Grizzlies, Pacers, Bucks. Covering the draft, and check out the Learning Basketball podcast on Swish Theory as well. But really appreciate you having me on, Edwin. Always fun talking hoops.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll catch up probably at the end of the off season if you're available, and if not, we'll talk at the beginning of next season just to kind of catch up and see
I
how
like
things are
it.
going with you.
Make it
Cool. Thank
happen
you so much
anytime.
for your time. Talk a little bit of Magic with me. Hope you have a great day.
You too. Have a good one.
I can't thank Ryan enough for spending so much time and being very generous with me in providing all his takes that it seems to have been building up over the last week since that loss to Detroit. So I think at this point, everyone just kind of coming to grips with the type of pressure that we're really going to be on now and how much of nitpicking we're going to have to do. And uh, also coming to grips with the fact that everybody wants things to turn out in the end and for everything to work out. We're going to hire a new coach and our offense is going to be incredible and our defense is going to be incredible and we're going to be a contender. But I'd say really this past season was a reality check for all of us, myself included. I was really looking pie in the sky at all the positive things and all the growth that had happened over the course of the last few years, and it just didn't work out in the end. So I'm going to be a bit more subtle, I think, or a bit more chill when I look at the prognostications moving forward and listening to all the different discussions about this team. Obviously, we'll see what happens. We'll see what Weltman's able to do in the offseason. But I really think this team is pretty much going to be the same, other than a new voice and hopefully a new offensive philosophy. Once we have all of that stuff, I think our talent is enough for us to challenge. As we saw, we were up 3-1 with, I would say, not always the most creative offensive scheme, because we're a very talented team when healthy. So hopefully we get a good year health wise, and the basketball gods, kind of hook us up a little bit and not be so strict with us, and we're able to move forward with a really good season next year. And with that being said, I'm going to take a few days off to be doing a lot of research on different trade options the Magic would be able to do. There's many different things out on the table. A lot of different teams have been already eliminated from the playoffs. Some are going to be eliminated very shortly from the playoffs, that are really going to be having a topsy-turvy offseason because either they've been in the playoffs a few years and they've kind of reached their limit. So I think there's going to be a lot of things happening this summer, and I want to be prepared for that and see what types of deals would be possible and how they would work with the salary cap, because I'm not one of those people that are like, we should trade Jalen for Jamal Murray. And you're like, okay, that sounds great, but it can't be 1-to-1. Who else would have to be included on there with us not having a lot of tradable draft picks? Like, what is going to happen, or what would be so enticing for Denver to do such a thing? So there's going to be a lot of that. I'm going to do the different possibilities along the way. So I want to do a deep dive on many of the teams around the league. I won't do necessarily a trade per team, but for a lot of the big teams that are going to be having probably some active off seasons, I'm going to try to do some deals, some bigger deals, or just, let's say, if it's that type of deal, talking about Jamal Murray and Jalen, would we do that trade before July 1st, or would we have to do that trade after July 1st? After July 1st, Jalen's number goes down. If we were going to include Goga, his contract also goes down, while Jamal Murray's goes up. So when do we do that trade? So it's those type of nuances that I'm really going to dive deep and make sure that I have all the information, and I want to make sure that that's something that I bring to you guys, because I don't want to just say this is what's going to happen and da, 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 because there's also going to be a lot of apron discussion. So the Magic are going to have to be very creative. So we will see. I hope that Jeff has a guy on his staff that's basically just a cap guy, because it's going to be a lot of financial gymnastics really to be able to field a better team. I think there's going to be a lot of internal growth just in general, because the guys are getting better. They're getting older. We saw that with AB. We saw that with Tristan this year. We'll see it with Jason Noah next year. So maybe there will just be that bit of internal growth, but I suspect there's going to be some smaller deal in the margins, and I want to be able to kind of really grasp what other types of deals we could do. So to give you that, guys, so just so you know, we're going to continue this pod all through the off season. I may not do it as regularly as I have been throughout the season, but I'll definitely be trying to get you prepared for the types of deal that the Magic can do. And then again, doing a Kyrie trade, what would that look like? Doing a Ja trade, what would that look like? Doing a Jamal Murray trade, what would that look like? Do a Nick Claxton deal. Like now that the numbers are going to be different because we're moving into a new fiscal year. Again, do I do it before or after? So I'll give all these different options to you guys so you know exactly what's going on. And that's just stuff that I'm a nerdy dude. So that's just what I'm going to really be interested in myself. So I'll give that to you guys as well in this podcast. So, as always, do the normal YouTube things, like, share, drop the comment below. And if you want to do so, hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce. And if you're an audio podcast listener, make sure to rate the show 5 stars and send it to a Magic fan, as it really helps the show grow by getting to more people. I want to thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. I hope you're having a great day.